Cannolo, it is Sicily. It's definitely a traditional Sicilian dessert. And we want to share exactly this. We want to share a traditional product that can be done with our Australian twist. Cannolo is something that you have to share with your family. Cannoleria try to do exactly that. We try to give a product that you can share with your family, share with your friends. All the important things, it can be happy or can be something sad, it's all around the table. And that's what my grandfather used to say. No matter if you have a little or a lot, food just brings everyone together. You can't go wrong with that. I'm Dario, owner of Cannoleria.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Blue Abroad Show, Monday, the 4th of November, 2024. We're inching closer and closer to the end of the year. It's 7 p.m. It's Monday. Pommy's back. Hello, mate.
Hey, are we all doing it right?
Yeah, good. It's kind of weird going from 4 to 5 live streams a week to like 1. I feel rusty.
Dear, it never leaves. You never switch off, Terry. Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? I actually had a complaint the other day that someone said that I don't go live enough on my channel, which is probably true.
Yeah.
So I apologise for that. But it's nice that I find lives easy. Like, honestly, YouTube secret, this is easy. Doing the pre-recorded videos, that's hard.
That's the tricky part.
Honestly, this is a piece of piss, man. Like, I'd be a millionaire if YouTube revenue was paying out just on lives. Like, I could do it 24 hours a day.
Well, we were just talking about live streaming, and would you ever do IRL streams?
Have you ever been on Twitch IRL? You ever been in that?
I've gone down the rabbit hole a couple of times.
Yeah. Me and David actually the other day, like, because I watch a lot of Twitch. Like Twitch is my TV. It's in the background when I'm editing. It's always on. Always watching it. And David was like trying to find new people, and he was like, "What's IRL?" And I was like, "When we click this, just be careful that you never tell Mum we click this because it's basically Pornhub." Legalized. Honestly, like some of that stuff is off its tits. But yeah, I've been down the rabbit hole. I'd like to branch out to general YouTube, wouldn't you, Terry?
What do you mean?
Well, just a bit more entertainment, less football, more. Look, that's my New Year's resolution: less football, more pissing about.
Eventually, yeah. Eventually, I was talking about this with someone recently, and I was saying, like, are you going to do another sport, or what happens after Carlton win the flag? And it's like, well, yeah, I think there is a reality where I'm talking about something else. Just, I don't know, you just got to live and enjoy what you have right now. But what's infinite in this? Everything comes to an end at some point, right?
Does it?
I think when it comes to any career, yeah. Like, I don't know if we're going to be doing 5 live streams a week in 30, 40 years from now. We might.
I don't know. You never know, do you? I mean, I suppose, the way I look at it is your career only ends when the people say it ends, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like George Best, I went out and spent $1,000 on his merchandise about 4 weeks ago. So even though he's passed away, he's still living. Like, his career still lives on. So I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah, it's a dangerous place to think, isn't it? When will it end? But I don't know. I think I might do YouTube. I can see myself being 80 years old. Like someone in the comments there saying Pom should cover the election. I could do that. It's not that hard, is it? To be honest. No, nowadays.
I can see myself doing a preview or a review at the least for a very, very, very long time, like for sure. But in terms of like fan cams every year for the next 10, 15, 20 years, probably not. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah, but I suppose. You mentioned a flag. What? Is that it? When we win a flag, are you and me going to be like Markham and Wise and just dance into the spotlight?
See ya. We've done our bit. We've done our bit. We drove the bus to a flag. Or maybe until, Cripps and Charlie and Wiedering and like they're retiring. It's like, yeah. I do believe you should be mindful of not overstaying your welcome in any realm. I've still got a lot to learn, but I feel like that's an important principle.
Are you saying that you leave the YouTube before the YouTube leaves you?
Well, I mean, I feel like I've got a lot to offer the world more than just Carlton.
It's deep, this.
Well,
Just different to a usually Monday show, innit? You can see I'm
and this is
back.
off season. This is what happens. You start, you have to look in the mirror. You gotta reflect. You have time to think. But yeah, I think that the new generation will come through and at some point and take over. Whether that's now, next year, or in 10, 15, 20 years. I think we've got a long, long while to go, to be honest. But you just never know what's around the corner.
I think I think you've hit the nail on the head. Wait until someone's ready to usurp you. But like I look at it this way. I want to set the bar so high it scares people. Because the bar used to be that high for me when I first got on the camera. I felt like it was impossible. So now I want to set the bar to intimidate other people. Because then if you're intimidated by it, you're worthy.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not retiring anytime soon.
Feels like Terry's like out of contract 2025 and he's just adding zeros onto his contract.
No, well, you and I were chatting just off live before, and I was talking about I've just come across IRL streamers, and I've seen like all of them, really, all of the YouTubers that I grew up watching. Eventually, they move on to the next thing once their purpose is done with what their content was. I think if you talk about, not that I used to watch Logan Paul a lot, but all of these guys, they've all had a path. They started as content creators and they moved onwards. These IRL streamers, like it looks like the content gobbles them up. That I don't think will happen here because we genuinely love this sport. We genuinely love this club. So it's whenever there's that moment, like it's not an act to pretend like we like talking about this, even though sometimes it's challenging. So yeah, I just think it's important to stay humble to know that, like nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah, but I think the natural progression, isn't it? When you look at we were just talking off camera, like chat, let us know your favorite like YouTube, Twitch personalities. Brownie points if you say me. But like the guys I watch, I see what you mean. Like Danny Aaron's Angry Ginger, two guys that like I've watched a lot. KSI, I watched him loads when he was a FIFA streamer.
Yeah,
I think they naturally progress into something that's palatable in the terms of doing this is palatable. If we were doing this 7 days a week, this would be a piece of piss. Like just you and me chatting shit. I think that's a dream YouTube career, which effectively they've done. They've turned it into that. Because when you're doing content like we're doing about games, about the draft, about the trade, what you guys and girls don't see is the hours, the weeks of preparation for 10 minutes. And sometimes it actually makes you feel a little bit sick. Like this 120 draft profiles I'm doing at the moment, it's 10 minutes. I worked it out the other day. 10 minutes for 10 videos. Times that by about 1,000 each for the research, watching them, accumulating the data. Like it is actually quite pathetic that the output is a 10-minute video. Like it doesn't make sense. If it was a business, you'd shut yourself down, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
like if you've got 1,000 hours for 10 minutes of video, it's quite hard, isn't it? So it makes sense that naturally they all progress to that sit down, chat shit, because that's the dream, isn't it?
Well, yeah. This is where I think our lives go, sitting on a chair talking. So we may as well start here.
I genuinely think in 20 years' time, there'll be a Pom and Terry show where we just sit and we have beers. We just recount the glory days of doing this with a 2-second delay between each other at 256 kps or something.
I'd like to think we'll have our equipment a bit more upgraded than 256.
No, but like, going back to the days when it was like on dial-up. Do you remember that? The
Yeah.
glory days when I used to talk and there used to have to be like a 3-second delay for you to hear me and then me retract. The good old days, bro. Like, mate, honestly,
Well, that when you send me like old draft previews, for example, it's like 2019. It's like looking back and like we've been doing this since then, even before then. Like that's like there's a genuine trail now.
yeah, I mean, look at how stupid this is. We've got like, look, both of us are currently in our offices dedicated to making YouTube videos. When my first video was in an old couch I'd found 2 hours before on driving back home that I put in my garage, and I hastily stuck a fake brick wall behind me. Like, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've got LED lights that can dance to music. Do you know what I mean? I've got 3 cameras, 3 screens in front of me, state of the art mic. I've got a portable. Like, it's actually crazy how far it's gone. When literally it was just that and a shitty background when I first started. Like, yeah, crazy, isn't it?
So no, it's cool. It's cool. So that's off-season thoughts. What else are you going to do? What else do you do in off? I mean, you got United. You watch United. I watch the NBA. I've started getting into the cricket a little bit more, but mostly the NBA.
Terry and cricket does not make sense, but
It doesn't.
well, I mean, I had a bit of a health scare over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm currently focused on that. So at the moment, I'm rearranging this quite a bit because I've got a treadmill and an exercise bike that's just been delivered that are taking up too much space. So Mrs. Bomb is getting me to sort out this area that's becoming like, it's almost like a perfect teenager's hangout at the moment. I've got my games console there, got my PC here, and then I've got work equipment. So I'm just going to be getting fit and watching that. So my aim is to be 90 kgs by March. So I'm in pre-season, me. So tell you
Imagine that.
what.
We're now doing pre-seasons here.
Yeah, well, I mean, my ultimate aim, and this is my goal, and I'm going to put it out to the universe. I'm a firm believer that if you put your goal out to the universe, then you're accountable. And I've got 1,000 people are probably going to watch this minimum. So I want this time next year to be able to go to the club and say, I want to do the first week of pre-season with the first year players and record it. That's what I want to do. 1 week, so I can show the world how hard it is. But you know what? 40 years old next year, I reckon I can take these 18-year-olds out, mate. You know what I mean? My
40 years
pop
old
raised
and
me 50 years older than he should be, and he could keep up with me and their dads. So it shouldn't be too hard for me. So no, that's what I'm going to do. So hopefully by March, when you see me, I'm going to have a 6-pack and abs.
I like it.
Huge ego.
Have you ever had a 6-pack? I've never had a 6-pack before.
I had a 6-pack when I was 20, yeah. And It
Wow.
was the worst 12 weeks of my life maintaining it. It's like a lifetime dedication. Don't do it.
Yeah, no, not for me.
Honestly, don't do it. It's like a lifetime to get there, but then it's like it's full main. Like people who have got 6-packs, be wary of them
Are they
because
really
that's
happy?
a lifetime.
Yeah. Wooden spoon data. I don't have a team. It's a long story. Maybe for another day, but I just love the game. It was my first love. Say basketball and Carlton, my first 2 loves. So I don't really have a team. I like the players. I like the game. I can watch any game anytime. Okay,
You know
Pommy.
when you watch, just before we move on to it, you know when you watch sport like that, something I've never done, but I've got a mate, a good mate of mine who I play golf with. He watches the EPL like you. Like he doesn't follow a team; he just loves the sport, and he'll just turn it on and he'll enjoy it. Does that make it easier to watch? Like, do you get a better enjoyment because you can watch it all weekend with no pain?
I love the intricacies of basketball. I could talk about basketball on a much deeper level than what I talk about the footy, to be honest, because I played it for 20 years. Like I look at the finer details, the footwork, the screens, the vision. I love the game and I watch any game, any team, doesn't matter how shit they are. I just love the game. I love seeing the sets that they run. I like seeing this new wave of coaching coming in. I like seeing the new ball movement of the Lakers. Like I just love the game and everything it's about.
Do you find, like, when I was speaking to my mate about it, like, he just, there's no, with no emotion, it's like watching a movie. Like, it's just enjoyable to watch. Like, turn it on, don't care, they lost, on to the next one. Like, I was talking to him, he watched all the games this weekend, and, like, he was just in love with it, and I'm like, I'm still smarting the fact that we managed to skag a draw to Chelsea. And it was kind of refreshing to hear someone who just couldn't wait to watch Brentford tonight at 7 a.m.
Yeah. Well, look, the NBA is on steroids because they're playing 3 times a week. I usually ramp up start of the season. There's always that lull after Christmas. Then you get to All-Star break, and then probably a week or two after that, I dip out a little bit, and then I'm back for playoffs. And once the playoffs come, like I just keep up to date. Just watch it all. I've had 2 or 3 periods in my life where I've run away from basketball, but I always find myself coming back. That's why you see Carlton and Michael Jordan. Like that's just me. It's just my child self.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I remember speaking to Ashton, and like he was, when I did the interview with him, and like basketball's huge in your society, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
in Pommyland, that's somewhere between fly fishing and lawn bowls.
Yeah,
Basketball, like, it's not huge back home. Like, but you still get the thing if you're over 6 foot in year 11. Do you play basketball? And it's like, no one plays basketball, mate. What are you on about?
Oh, you must be good.
But yeah. We had a spurt during Michael Jordan. Like, everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon. But yeah, it's weird. It's like basketball's huge over here, where like in the UK, it's not really that big.
I wouldn't rule out a reality where I run away to the US and follow and pick a team and then just document the journey. I wouldn't rule that out in my life.
You know what? I watch a guy called Footy Away Days. Absolutely fantastic content. Like, he just goes around visiting football grounds in the UK and goes to a game and experiences it as a fan, as an impartial, like, rates the food, rates the seating, the atmosphere, the post game, how friendly the fans are. It's fantastic content. I always watch that, and I think I could see Terry doing this, because I think you've got that chameleon personality where you could be dropped in the middle of Budapest, can't speak a word of the language, and by the end of the night be like him, and suddenly he's got lifelong mates, stories to tell. I think, I always watch that, because Zoe says, "Oh, I could see you doing this," and I'm like, I'm way too abrasive after a beer. Like mine would be rating fights in the European continent, but I could see you doing that in an NBA. Do you know what I mean? Vlog. I'm here at Flumin University, Caledonia, whatever it is, watching them games. I could see that.
I could. Mate, you never know what life's going to throw. You never know what's around the corner. So
I tell you what, that's probably the most informative 20 minutes of the Blue Abroad show you've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. We get to hang out. There wasn't as much news this week. But tonight, we've got a few things on the agenda. We're going to talk about the draft. We're going to go a little bit more in depth about the draft and what Carlton needs to be successful in this year's draft. More than just attributes on the field. Because I think, this time of year, I do a lot of research for videos and look at what worked and what didn't work. And I find myself often asking, like, how did it not work with that player? How did it not work with that player? And it's like, well, it's more than just ability on the field. It's your characteristics off the field. So we're going to go through that. We're going to do a little bit on Sam Walsh. I'm going to ask a particular question about Sam Walsh. Those of you who watch the video at 6 o'clock, it's the best of Sam Walsh in 2024. Basically, it's the highlights of all of the games where he received at least one Brownlow vote. And then that's going to be followed tomorrow with a specific video on Sam Walsh and his year and his story. And we'll talk a little bit about the AFLW. We're going to talk a little bit about Zach Tuohy's comments, because they seem to just keep going down a rabbit hole. And then we're going to talk about 2025 and if you have any ideas for positional changes. So, Pommy, start with the draft. Any updates on what you think we like when it comes to pick 3? Or is
No,
it
I think the
just
same.
all roads lead to Sid Draper?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm still Team Draper, but like I'm open to really anyone in that mold. Like I don't think I have you can't name me a player that I'd be super disappointed with
Right.
in that purview, because basically at 3 you're pretty much guaranteed to get, if you have a best of 3, you're guaranteed to get one. So that's always a good one. When you look at traits, though, there's 2 traits that I look heavily for in junior football, and one of them is their teamwork, their team ethic. It's very easy when you see some of these players that they go out there and be superstars, right? Because at that level, it's very amateur. So think of when you were at school, the kid who could play soccer the best, the whole team was built around him and he was a star. The great players, though, bring players in. So that's one, and leadership is another one. I am a sucker for he's been a captain. I do like that, because
Yeah.
I think at 18, I captained in year 11, and I captained our golf team, and I captained our cricket team. And then I did that as a man. It was a lot harder as a kid than it was a man. Because as a kid, you really are taught you're at the same level. Do you know what I mean? You're all at school. You can't say, I've got a nicer car than you. My missus is prettier than yours. I earn more money. There's none of that bollocks. It's just you go to school. So I like that. You know, from a young man who can take that leadership mantle, do the extras, I think that holds them in good stead. So that's one of the character traits I really look for, leadership. I like that. If you're a young player with leadership, great leaders are great followers. And you've got to be a follower. And that's a hard shift. When you cock of the walk in under 18s, when you walk in with Patrick Cripps, you're a nobody.
Yeah.
And that's a hard culture shift for a young man.
It's an interesting point, because naturally, fairly or unfairly, whether it's a Carlton supporter thinking this or externally media thinking this, there's going to be a chat or a rolling discussion next year around, should they have gone for Houston instead of pick 3, which is pretty unfair, but at the same time, whatever, because pick 3's career won't be defined by his first year. It won't even be defined by his first 3 or 4 years. It'll be defined by his entire career. So there's that, quote unquote pressure, whether they're going to subscribe to it, but their ability to handle the external. Now, generally speaking, the kids coming through are a lot more, like, they're better built to deal with external, right? Because they've grown up in social media. So what are the attributes of these top 3 or 4 or 5 names that you see? Or do you have any specific attributes that you can talk on with them when it comes to dealing with that pressure?
Well, I think if we break it down, let's break it down. Let's break it down to, let's spread it. Let's go 4 and throw a secret 4th name. But let's say if it's Finn O'Sullivan, Sid Draper, Sam Layla, or Harvey Langford, or Jagger Smith, the 4 guys that should be around that thing. Let's try and break them out. So I'd say Finn O'Sullivan, what character traits do we know about him? I'd say the big one is the ability to be the runaway pick 1. If we were talking about him last year, we talked about Finn O'Sullivan a bit last year, probably more so than we did Draper when I did my early previews. The fact that he had fractured thumb, broken fingers, hip complaint, he's never got quite going. But the fact he's always come back, he's managed to play, 4 games for his club side, Oakley, and then 2 games statewide, and then play a VFL game as well and play fairly okay in that. That shows resilience. Like, that's quite tough. And we've seen many players come through the system, have injuries. Elijah Holland's a great example. Guy that was touted as pick 1, horrific injuries, took him 4 or 5 years to get going, where Finn has risen to the challenge and really done it. Then you look at someone like Jagger Smith. He's a natural leader. He's played in the VFL. And one thing I like about him is his dad, Michael, was drafted by the AFL, by Collingwood, and didn't play again. Now,
Right.
As a kid, you always look to emulate your dad. I did anyway. I'm just talking generalized. But I always looked to emulate them figures that were in my life. That's like a huge, I think, hole in the heart, isn't it? That I can do something. I can bring that legacy to my dad's name. That dad nearly got there. I can do this for dad and myself. I always like that. And I think the thing with Jagger is he was called too small last year. He's really proven that wrong this year. Incredibly clean. And again, another captain, another leader. So he's gone through all of that. You can't do this, you can't do that, but he's proven everyone wrong, and he's in the conversation. We'll finish with Sid. Harvey's one of my favourites, right? Harvey, I love Harvey Langford because AFL comparisons are the most funniest in the world, right? Because when you're compared to Marcus Bontempelli, but the knock is, he doesn't have breakneck speed. Neither does Marcus Bontempelli, but Marcus Bontempelli is pretty fucking good. And if you read every article about Harvey, you'll see these things. Incredible ball winner, one of the best fitness in the league, incredible goal kicker, incredible difference maker, can kick with the right, but he's left-footed, incredible, spectacular marking, slow. I think the fact that he has come through that, and every time you see an article, he's a bit too slow for AFL level, he goes up a level and dominates. And I think his VFL games will really showcase how hard he worked. 3 tackles in that VFL game, 2 clearances against men. He really showed that he didn't look out of place. And then we finish with Sid, the drap dog. Another leader, natural leader, and he's been a leader in all of his age brackets. And a guy that came in under 18 as a bottom ager last year and won the MVP, which people forget to talk about him. He won the state MVP as a 17-year-old. Incredibly quick. And the big thing with him was there was all this talk last year that he kept seeming to have these little niggles. And then he had that horrible stress fracture at the start of this year. And it kept him out. And there was a lot of talk. Oh, no, we've seen this before. Jake Walker was a South Australian. He was really high up. And he went undrafted because he couldn't get his injuries under control. Sid Draper hit the ground halfway through the season and took the piss. Like, he took the piss. And I think one of the traits I like is he's got a brother in this league. People forget, Arlo Draper. So, who's been there and failed. And what do we know about brothers? You always look to have that inner rivalry and carry it on. And I think he's another player that I look at and think, okay, he's been a leader. He's had his injuries. And then he's come back. He's come back and he's shined. And a lot going against him. There's a big target on your back, MVP at 17, I think, as well. It's hard to win. And to play his majority of his year in men's football, I think very impressive because he was playing for a rubbish team as well. So, yeah, I think all 4 of them have got character traits that are quite nice.
You know how they do the weird questions to the players, and we hear stories of that?
Yeah.
If you're a list manager, is there a specific question that you would want to ask a draftee, a potential draftee, to figure out what they're about as a character?
Yeah, one of my favourite questions, I actually asked this when I interview the draftees, is one of my favourites, is how do you want to be remembered when you retire? Do you know what I mean? I think that's one of the ones that I like. And I always like asking, where would you draft you?
Oh, yeah.
I always like that because I always thought Philippo's answer was the best when he goes, I'm probably the 3rd or 4th best currently, but I'll take myself at pick 1 because when you redo this draft, that's where you'll put me. And that really turned me on. Yeah. I was like, okay, I see where we're going. I like this.
That is an insight into the mentality. I like that. Why do you think they ask such random questions? Is it to test? Is it to test them to see if a random moment comes their way?
Yeah, I mean, some of them like we talked about this a while ago. With some of the questions some players get asked, like some of them are so archaic that I know Essendon were one of the teams that were using like a 1980s formulae, which had like just the questionnaires on music. And if you like certain music, that put like a question mark on you. You've got to remember AFL, for as good as it is, he's so far behind sports science-wise that it's quite laughable at times, and we are rapidly catching up, but we're still behind. So it's quite interesting that this year a lot of the clubs did they called it speed dating, which it's quite funny. When I've spoke to draftees 3 or 4 years ago, the older boys pass down the questions. So it's almost like revising for an exam or cheating off your mate, where now they're trying to catch these players off guard. And I think that's good, because why it's good when you throw a curveball, when you ask difficult questions, how their mind works under verbal pressure is very similar to how you work in pressure. You think when you're playing football, there's nowhere to hide, isn't there? So if you're a little bit intimidated by meeting new people, putting yourself out there, being thrown on the spot, I think that maybe I would answer a little bit of questions of, okay, if he's got a bit worried about me probing and throwing some curveball questions, how's he going to handle 100,000 MCG, 2 goals down, 5 minutes to play? Like, if you can't handle a question over a cup of tea, he ain't got any hope when someone's trying to break him.
That makes sense.
I think it depends what you think. I don't think you can teach leadership. I don't think you can teach mentality. And I could be wrong, but in my belief, I think you can maybe adapt it. But I think having that dog in you, that Kobe mentality, I think you're born with that. And I think that's something that you can't hide from. That's who you are. So I think that's a big, big thing. And yeah, some of the questions are bizarre, though, aren't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wrestling with the thought of, what do Carlton need to do to make sure that we nail the draft? Because we just can't afford to get another pick 3 wrong. We just can't, especially with where this group is at. We really do need to inject this team with just a little bit more each year. And I think having gone through the drafts last week with Nick, and then seeing 2015 really saves our ass. 18 with Walsh, really solid. DeConing saves 2017 because it's one of the best picks with pick 30, and also 2 of the worst picks with O'Brien and Dow in the top 10. So it's, there's pressure. There's pressure on everyone. Like Nick Austin, you said this in the video we did with Dylan about pick 3. You're like, Nick Austin will have his draft board. It's all fine and well, but then the moment is going to come. Like, the tuckless, the moment where he's like, okay, Sid Draper's available, Harvey Langford's available, Jagger Smith's available, whatever. It's like, all right, which one is it going to be? And it's just so hard to know what the right decision is in the moment. It's a lot easier to judge it when time takes place.
Yeah, and I think you've got to look at it this way, that since Nick Austin's been there, he hasn't really had to work too hard with draft picks. So, do you know what I mean? Like, this one comes under a lot of pressure because at 3, you are expecting a 200 gamer. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where we are. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think Nick Austin has proved, especially through the Dan Houston thing, and I think it was very obvious. I was one of the few saying I don't think it's going to happen, and I was proved right. And I think Nick Austin is a man that will probably have that name. It'll be written on his board. And should that name be there, regardless of who slides, let's just say Jagger Smith slides, who's number 1, right? Who's number 1 in many people's eyes. Let's say that's the case. I think if Finn O'Sullivan is his number 1 pick, he's taking it. He's not straying. And that's where you've got to get it right. So it's going to be interesting. Unfortunately, it's not science, though. You can't prove. You've got to go on the gut. And I think for Nick Austin, I don't think he'll be looking for character traits per se, because I think we've got quite a vanilla list. Okay. One thing I look at our list, I don't think we have that many characters, and that does concern me. I think a great team has characters, has a bit quirky. We've got Boydie to an extent. I think we need a little bit more zest.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. We definitely sterilize the characters to a degree in the way that they portray themselves, Like, I think Doc speaks freely because he's now lived life on a really serious level. And you can tell you don't need to put a script in front of him. But I think a lot of them have needed to be trained. I think Cripps has started to come out the other end, but he also is very trained from where he was. Ashton is a really interesting one because hearing him speak at his age right now, it's like, wow, you can really see there's a real character there.
Yeah, and yeah, like when I say like character, like I don't want people to think like I don't want a guy like who's dressing up as a clown on a Monday morning, like just something a bit different. I mean, something a bit different. Do you know what I mean? And you're speaking to these boys, a lot of them are very manufactured, and that's probably the bad thing with the AFL now. These kids are being manufactured from 16 to 15. And quirky is bad. Paul Curtis is a great example. We talked about him a lot in our draft because I like Paul Curtis, but because he was in a punk band with his mates, he liked that kind of music. He had the ear stretcher. He looked out of place, but he doesn't look out of place on a football field. And I think that's where you look for. I mean, like when you hear like Sid Draper speak, talks very matter of fact. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. Them kind of things will bring a fresh energy in the dressing room. Do you know what I mean? You look at the Hollands brothers, great point by Jimmy. They are so much fun. When you hear them, they are like two bickering brothers. Do you know what I mean? Like they are fascinating to watch. You know what I mean? Like one of them's making fat jokes. Ollie Hollands is laughing that he can eat chips and Elijah can't. Like it's proper brotherly banter, and that rubs off in the dressing room as well. Do you know what I mean? That kind of that vibe, and it's very stressful. You got to remember, it's very stressful doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
you can't have a load of worrywarts and a load of people who are football. You need one guy to come in and I don't know, let out a really loud fart and just get everyone giggling. That's how you break tension. So it'd be interesting. You've got to get the right player though, and I think all three in that range. I think they all bring qualities that I think we desperately lack.
Yeah, that is actually a great segue. I'm going to bring this topic up now. You're talking about being football all the time. More comments were revealed from Zach Tuohy and Brendan Bolton. And this time last week, we were talking about the video. The book hadn't been released. The book's now been released. Tuohy's got a little bit in his book where he's recounting a specific scenario of how he and Brendan Bolton's relationship was just strained. And Bolts was arguably just too switched on to footy. So what did you make of... It's like a story that just continues to give us something to talk about.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's me getting old. Life's too short. And when I'm hearing someone saying he's a little bit upset that he was told not to eat a biscuit, I genuinely think, is this what's going on in the world? Like, is that really effective? Is it that deep? Like, is it that deep? I mean, obviously, I think Bolton, I think what that told me more than anything was just how much of a horrific job we did at bringing Bolton in and getting the right people around him. Because I think, obviously, quite rightly, Bolton comes in and we know what this AFL industry is like. Trust me, I know, as a foreigner with no football experience, I know AFL is probably the closest, tightest knit group to get into. So look at the AFL. Bolton didn't play AFL football. He was rare. So he's had to go in there and he has to command this respect, where the respect he's given to someone like Voss. He's been there and done it. And you remember what people used to say about Teague. Teague has actually played AFL. Bolton was playing Tassie country grade football. So you can see from his point of view, but that's again where I look and go, right, okay, Bolton, listen to the other clubs. Highly lauded at Hawks, highly lauded at Collingwood. Collingwood fans are mourning that Bolton's gone. St Kilda are jumping and getting excited they've got him. He's obviously got some quality in him. What it said to me is that you should have had the great people around him. You should have had them people around him to help him command that authority. But I'm not a fan, man. Like a big, stout Irish man with tattoos, cracking the sads because he got told don't have shortcake with your bloody coffee. Come on, bro.
Yeah, I didn't instantly go on a anti-Bolton thought. My first thought was simple principle. What Zach says about Brendan says more about Zach than Brendan. Brendan or Bolts, like he was clearly trying to like set the standard and, you know, do the 1%ers. And I don't recall exactly when Neil Craig left, but I know that there's been a really strong thought amongst the supporters, the Carlton fans, I should say, around that when Neil Craig left, which I think was around about 2016 as well. Neil Craig leaves Carlton. So, and I reckon that we've always spoken about how him leaving had an impact. 2017. Yeah.
Yeah, you need that experience around you, don't you? And you do. And like
Biscuit asked over a biscuit. It's actually brilliant. It just fits so well.
Yeah, but I mean, I think from that point of view, like you've only got to look at AFL interviews, AFL industry.
Yeah.
Like if you play for a half decent side, you're guaranteed to get a job. And then you look at other world sports and all the pathways into that sport. AFL is basically, if I play for a flag winning side and I happen to just be there, I'll get a gig in the AFL, in the media or something like that. And that's quite a sad thing. So I can understand from Bob's point of view, he's got to come in there, look at who he's been led by, Clarkson, a man that rules with an iron fist. And we know Bolton's not that guy. He's probably trying to set them 1%ers and standards. And a bit of probably inexperienced leadership, calling him up in front of everyone and saying, stand up if you've had a cookie. It's a little bit pathetic. It's not how I would instill that. That's probably something you pull him into your office and go, Zach, mate, I'm trying to get this level. So when the woman comes around with the free cupcakes, I want you to be that standard and say, no, I want you to be my standard, sir. And I'm sure Zach would have reacted differently and gone, okay, cool, Bolts. Consider it done, Chief. But it's the generation we live in, isn't it? Like, do you know what I mean? Let something bad happen and then have a cry about it 10 years later. And miraculously, it helps my retirement fund. Do you know what I mean? Like,
there is a bit of that. There is a bit of that to it as well. It's wrote a book, played at Geelong. No one's really going to read the fucking thing unless I spill the tea on Carlton. That's going to help sell it. So I think it did help sell the book because we're talking about it 2-3 weeks in a row now.
And you know what? I love Zach because I've heard engagements with Zach. I heard this great story from one of my mates. Some dickhead had taken the disabled car park for his son. Zach Tuohy knows this guy, saw him arguing with the stewards, and Zach Tuohy moved his car, got someone to move his car and let this gentleman park in the players' car park so his son could attend the game in his wheelchair. Like, he's a great guy, and no issues with that. And you got to make money, bro. Got no issues with it. But like, for me, it just seemed a bit disingenuous. Like, if that affected Zach, so be it. But in my opinion, it's elite sport. Your one job is to stay fit and healthy. And do you know what I mean? If you come, it was a bad way to deal with it. I think from Bolts. When I read the story, I thought it was a bad way. But I'm like, Jesus, there must have been worse. If that's the worst thing that's happened to you in your professional career, fuck me.
You're going okay.
Great career.
Yeah. Speaking about professional sport, haven't really spoken too much about the AFLW team, the Carlton AFLW side. So the season's ended, 4 wins. Again, I don't truly feel passionate about the women's team, and that's the truth. I'm just being honest. I don't feel passionate about it because I watch it when it's on, and I really have a shortened attention span for it and a lower level of tolerance for it because I just constantly watch myself being disappointed with the fact that they're so far into this league right now, even though the league is still quite young, but our club, and it's just kind of like, it's a bit wishy-washy with everything I'm watching and everything I'm hearing and the words that are spoken. I don't know what expectations can be put on it. And so I just stay away. What have you made of the W program?
You know what? It's fascinating because, like, I watch nearly all of the Manchester United women's games.
Yeah.
Like, I absolutely love it. Like, do you know what I mean? Absolutely love it. And I've got a few mates who work in with the women's football, and they absolutely froth it, and they're all about it. I kind of feel a bit disconnected from the women's club, and that's no reflection on me. Like, I will watch the games if they're on, and try and support them as best I can. But I found that the damage has kind of been done for me as a fan in how quickly everything changed, to see the players leave, how poorly it's organised. And I think an element of what you said about the NBA, I think is an element of how you fall in love with your football team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a firm believer that if you go back to your first memories of supporting the football club you love, I bet your first memory is a player. Like, I
Yes.
bet the player was over the club almost. Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And you went to the games because you wanted to see this player, and then the club kind of came a bit later when he left or they retired, and you kind of were there. And I just found that, like, you could see the club getting progressively worse, and you kind of fell in love with the original girls who came through the door. They were going to be Carlton, the first girls, and then seeing them leave for nothing, it seems so higgledy-piggledy. And for me, watching the product, as it were, at times it feels like the product is watered down. And it's almost come to the stage where you actually feel scared, in my opinion, to talk about the game. Because if you say anything negative, like that was a poor performance, you are then tarred with this very large, you're a misogynist, you are a bigot. And you know what? For someone personally in his sporting life, sacrificed nearly his career and the livelihood of his families to protect women in his industry, find it a bit disingenuous when I've got some idiot on Twitter who hasn't even dated a girl tell me that I'm a bigot or a
Yeah.
misogynist. So,
But like, yeah,
I feel
mean,
that's the problem now. It's become, what's wonderful about women's soccer is that isn't a part of it. Sexism isn't a part of it. They are selling the product. They are selling their own heritage. And that makes people come. That
yeah,
makes people come that this is the football you love being played by women. And the sport sells itself. What's being played is totally inconsequential. So for
yeah.
me, I feel like the AFL has ran this into the ground, and I think it's lost a lot of its hardcore, and they've got to work hard to get it back.
Yeah, I think there was I mean, talking from a broad point of view now, so AFLW as a league as opposed to the Carlton women's team, I guess there was a decision made. We're going to get 18 clubs represented. We're going to take a hit short term, but in the long term, everyone gets to the start line and away we go. Rightly or wrongly, fair enough. Clearly, things have been diluted and watered down because of that as a result. But just bringing it back to the Carlton women's team, right? Like, just I want to care about it. Like, I do. I I like watching something. And Carlton is a very easy sell for me personally. And like, I want to watch it. And when they're playing and it's on TV, I do put it on. But I also now have this ability to regulate my emotions. I'm not trying to get pissed off to this level in the off season. And maybe that's being disingenuous because we're on a Carlton fan channel, but I just don't look at anything I'm watching on a high level with our club and the women's program. And I don't see us wanting to win. I see us wanting to participate, and that's great because footy is for everyone. But I just don't see actions or words to the effect of winning. And I don't know how much real effort is going into it. I don't know how much real care factor is going into it. I think the focus is on the men's program. And to be honest, I watch the men's footy more than what I watch the women's footy. That's just a personal preference. But it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I wonder if the players feel this way. And I don't really know where the blame lies, because is it the program? Is it the coach? Is it the players? Is it just the whole thing? Is it just this period of time that we have to stick it out? it used to be they're the game changers. Like, the game is changed. We're here. We're all playing it now. Let's continue. I just find it really difficult to latch onto it.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, I think in the heart of hearts, I think Carlton came into this wanting to be the game changers, one of the inaugural clubs. I think the way they folded over on losing these players, trying to do whatever it is, I think said to me that this is more a secondary competition in the club's eyes. And I think that's very sad because I'm telling you what, these girls work incredibly hard to get there. Incredibly hard to get there. And you know what? I think you'd be plenty stupid to think it's not harder for a female in sport. It 100% is. Do you know what I mean? It 100% is, or was, I should say. It's getting a lot easier now. But I think you look at it in a deeper level. The AFL has cooked this. Whichever idiot in that boardroom for 18 clubs with a small, shallow pool was a good idea. Completely barmal. He's barmy. Do you know what I mean? I think anyone who thought... I was listening to Laura talk about, like, we've got to reach these amounts, and it's happened before. And, like, I was listening to her and I was thinking, yeah, but it happened before when it was something new, and that was your chance to get us. Like, that first year, it was new, and people love new stuff. People will always try it. A new restaurant opens up, everyone goes to it to try it once. And if it's rubbish, they never go back. And that's my issue. I think they had the perfect opportunity to keep it small. Was that maybe a 5-league team with the best girls in class? You had another state league competition where the other clubs could have maybe participated in until we got the pool. But now you see it stretched out. And I watched the Essendon game, and with all due respect, I felt like there was only 6 girls who could play that level.
Yeah.
And I felt like the rest were kind of propping them up and kind of there. And then I was thinking, if we just kept this at like 5 or 6 teams, because the girls coming through the draft, you go and watch it. And I did actually catch a good mate of mine, does a lot of AFLW content. I went and caught a game with him. The girls in the junior footy, remarkable, kicking on both feet, spinning. You can see the quality and the pathways opened up. But my fear is, and we saw this in English soccer, when it was a B tier product, where it was kind of like, okay, we'll throw a bit of cash at it, say we've got it. It turned a lot of people off because the quality wasn't good. And now, after 5 or 6 years of it being the pinnacle of female sport in Britain, where women's sport doesn't really have much competition apart from soccer, people are starting to flood back to it. That's my concern. You're going to turn a lot of people off. And that makes me sad, because the girls don't deserve this. They're working incredibly hard, and there's no doubt about that. The issue is, it was fucked from the start because people tried to run before we could walk.
Yeah, but like, that's still been the case, but you still see a strong North Melbourne, or you still see other clubs being strong. Like, what resources does the Carlton program not have that the other programs do have that allow them to be successful? Because I actually would have thought that we have more than most clubs with the women's program and the resources and the facilities and etc. You know, like, sometimes you just, like, I understand, you know, everyone has the right to play the game and all that, but you've also got to earn your respect in this league. And I think there's plenty in that team to be at a finals level. I mean, 12 months ago, we're talking about one of the best players in the league, Bree Moody. There's the up and coming talent was meant to be like Mimi Hill and Abby McKay. Like, that was the up and coming talent. They're now the leaders. It's just, there's still this really interesting parallel to the men's program where we talk about the individuals and their brilliance, but the team just sucks. Like, it just doesn't gel. It's dysfunctional, and their performances are poor. You know, and there's always an excuse. And then I listened to Coach Buck, and like, I listened to his repeated press conference after every loss, and I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, what's happening? Why is everyone just, oh yeah, oh, well, you know, we'll take our learnings. What do you mean? Like, how are they not better?
Well, I think you look at it look at the winners. Adelaide, they've won it 3 times. So I think you look at Adelaide, you look at the way the draft is, it's zoned. So South Australia, Adelaide for all but 2 of them years have had monopolies on South Australian talent. Then you look at Brisbane, same story, Queensland talent. But then you look at the Doggies and Melbourne, 2 teams that people forget were one of the first sides to play an exhibition game in 2013. So way ahead. Do you know what I mean? They've been planning this for a while. Then you look at Carlton and Collingwood, the 2 teams that joined them, with Fremantle, who have struggled as well. I think with Carlton, we kind of really pushed it that first year, didn't we? And it wasn't pushed, I think, in a bad way. It was pushed in a "hey, we're here" kind of way. And I think Sayers makes a great point. I've been down to the AFLW. I went with Terry once, and I've been a couple of times, a couple of years before. And it is kind of old school football. You can talk to the players.
It's that community. It is. It really is.
But then I look at how it's marketed. I can't help feel that when you do marketing for a sport, you've got to find a reason to go to something new. And I think that we've had Hartford and Buck. Honestly, they couldn't drive a coach, let alone coach a footy team. So, I mean, there's one problem. They've lost all these marquee players. It's never really happened. And Carlton kind of almost feel like at times we let the AFLW walk over us to say we're in it for the go. So, yeah, please just walk all over us. Well, I'd like us to stand up a little bit and go, well, hang about. We put our brand in first. We put our brand in first. We put our hats into the ring and said, let's make it happen. We even gave you Princes Park to play your big games there. Help us out. I think that's an issue, Terry. But I do think the big issue as well is it's got to be marketed correctly as well. Everything about AFLW from top to bottom, it feels meh. Meh. For me, if I was in charge of the AFLW now, I'm marketing this I'm doing an advert of a son going with their dad to the football, him telling the wife to stay at home with his daughter, and they have a great day out, and then they come home and the mum and daughter in the 1970s looking out the window looking forlorn, and that little girl being told she can't play football. And then I'd fast forward to now where it's the mum and daughter going to the footy because they've got their own competition, or where it used to be, oh, dad's had a son, as I had a daughter, oh, I can't kick footies with her. You push that emblem of now dad can create that legacy with his daughter going to the AFLW, and you can still go and changing that narrative. But honestly, it's cooked, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. Hartford, you hear the stories about him. It looks like they've done the classic Carlton thing. We've had a real dickhead, so let's get a real pushover. Classic. That's in the men's football. That's not even going on women's football. Yeah. We do that in the men's. We make one mistake and we go the other end of the spectrum to try and fix the mistake. So it's sad, but we've got to stick behind it. And honestly, I'm a hypocrite. I need to get behind it because the only way the girls will have any success is by us all going. And it's sad because they are working just as hard as the men.
Yeah. I do wrestle with the thought, honestly, because I didn't go to a single game this year. I watched, I think the first couple were away. And so I watched them, honestly, from the first 2 games that I watched, I was like, I know exactly what we're going to get. I just know exactly what we're going to get, watching the press conferences, and then you get a really good sugar hit with the win, and then you lose the next one, and then, but it's the fixture. There's just always an excuse. And I think our women's program can actually unlock the supporter base, the wider supporter base, by winning. And it's easy to say, I understand that. But at this point in time in their careers, Karen Harrington is at the end. That's a career come and gone. Darcy Vescio, I don't know how long the career, we're talking about veterans of the team and the league now. Talent's not an issue. I'm not copping it that we don't have enough talent in the women's program, because I think we do. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just watch a participation product more than a winning product, or a team focused on winning. And that's just, it's hard. But I love them, and I'll get behind them when I see consistent results and performance.
I feel like that starts from the top, though, Terry. Like, I really do. I really do. I think Matthew Buck's the wrong appointment. I think Carlton needs to be a little bit more aggressive as well in this. Be a bit more ruthless. Because I'd still say that there's young girls up and down the country that dads, like you hear it with the AFL, it's the most annoying thing in the world when you watch draftees, and 90% of the draftees go, oh, spot Carlton. Right? Do you know what I mean? And you're like, fuck's sake, if only we could draft people for the support. I'm sure that happens with the girls as well. I'm sure there's loads of young girls they're playing footy now because dad supported Carlton, or dad supported Collingwood, or dad supported Aston and the big Melbourne clubs. So it would still be attractive. Do you know what I mean? It would still be a huge avenue to come. I'd love to see Carlton do it. And it's a shame. I really do think it's a shame because they need the help. And unfortunately, I think it's just been ruined by bureaucracy, which it often is. And I think what's sad about it is I think at times it becomes more of a marketing league than a sports league. And I saw this quite a lot in the UK with the football, with our soccer. At first, it came as a place to drive agenda that wasn't about sport, right? And then when they started to realise, no, we can treat women as equals. We don't get the men to do this. So it becomes a byproduct of your success. I think when you find that happy medium, that it's all about women playing football, that's when you'll find the happy median. That's when you have it. And that comes from a ruthlessness and to win. And you look at Daisy Pearce, remarkable. I love hearing Daisy talk about football. When you hear her talk, she talks like a sports person. Even the marketing of the AFL, go and watch an AFL interview with a woman. It's totally different to a man. They ask ridiculous questions. I was watching one of the draftees the other day. They're asking about, oh, you like walking your dogs. What's your favourite breed? Did you get it at Bowen? It's there. And I'm like, all the footballers walk dogs. You never ask an AFL draftee that bollocks, though, do you? Like, you don't ask about their personal life or weird hobbies. You ask about the footy. And you go, what footy? What was your inspiration to play the game? Who taught you? Role models. So, like, for me, it just feels meh. It feels meh. It feels half committed. And that makes me sad.
I look forward to the day that they get serious. I truly do. I look forward to it. I look forward to hopefully one day they unlock the fan base and get people around, because people are passionate about the Carlton Football Club, and anything or anyone that's representing the Carlton Football Club, they're passionate about, but you've got to earn the right. And, you know, you have such a short season, you have such an opportunity, and a lot of their careers will come and go quicker than what the men will at this stage, because it's such a shortened season. So, yeah, the triumph is in overcoming the odds, not complaining about the odds that you're against. Like, the actual story that is remembered is the story of those who overcame the obstacles. The world will talk about what you had to endure when you endure and overcome it, not when you scream and shout about what's not fair in this world. So, some food for thought.
Deep, that, Terry. No, mate, I'm with you. I mean, I just genuinely think it's sad. It really is. And this was like the first year that I don't think I've put my heart and soul. You'll notice I haven't done an AFLW show this year and stuff. It hasn't tickled my pink. And I think Mac Champion nails it. That expansion, when you had these clubs, it ruined it. It ruined it because you did fall in love with seeing Prosparkis, Georgia G. Yeah,
Taylor Harris.
They were our home goals. You know, our first draft. They were the core, and the fact that there was no compensation, it was lucid. And for me, I don't understand the expansion. I understand the expansion in fairness and equality, but did it need it? Like, I didn't watch AFLW 1 and go, fuck, this would be grouse if we had 16 more teams. and that's where it is. You've got to pave your own way. And, like, I feel sorry because I do feel like women's sport, and trust me, coming from golf, it is considered lesser. And they play with the same clubs. They play with the same balls. Yeah, the holes are slightly smaller in length. Yeah, the graphite shafts are lighter, but they're still putting in the same graft as an elite level male, right? And the pay disparity exists because of the sponsors and the people that watch it. But they're still playing the same game. They're still working incredibly fucking hard. And it is kind of sad when you look at the powers that be. The PGA was horrible with the women's game for years, and it's only recently started to get better, where young girls can join their golf clubs and get the same treatment to practice and play. But you look at the women's AFL game, it doesn't feel like that leadership is pushing the right type of expansion. Do you know what I mean? Feels like they're just trying to say at times it feels like it's there so they can say they've got it, as opposed to
the exact what I said. It feels like it's to participate rather than win.
And for me, I think that's the most degrading thing to female sport. If you're saying, "Oh, it's all right, we'll give you this," because they deserve far more respect than that. So, I mean, it is what it is, and back to the point, like I said, where if anyone criticizes it as well, then it becomes another problem, and I'm one of them guys who says, well, if you're a sportsman, whether you're a male or a female, providing that the criticism is about the sport you play and the job you do, that's fair game. That's equality. Do you know what I mean? I don't have a daughter, but if I was teaching her to play golf, I'd speak to her like she was my son. That's shit. And when I was coaching females, I'd give them harsh feedback like I did the boys. You know what was amazing as well? The people who took harsh criticism the best usually were the females in my coaching groups.
Sure.
It's usually the men who had a little bit of a cry. Oh, you were horrible to me 2 weeks ago. The girl usually came back fucking better. Yeah. So fascinating, but it is what it is. And I hope they get it right.
Let's move along because we've I think the point is made, but I want to come back. Yeah. I want to come back and talk about Sam Walsh. So I uploaded his highlights today, 6 p.m. If you haven't watched them, watch them after this because there's an accompanying video tomorrow where I talk about his season. And the premise of the video is it's just centered around this question, right? So I think the recency bias kicked in, and it kicks in generally with a lot of us all the time because of how things ended. But when I was watching his highlights, right, and going through his story, so keep in mind, 2022, he misses a chunk of preseason with the syndesmosis injury. Last year also had the back issue. He misses the first 5 games. He had he had a micro discectomy procedure in his back. 2024 preseason happens again. So there's a bit of context as to what's happening with Sam Walsh. So the question is Sam Walsh overrated, or are we being harsh?
One of my favourite things about Sam Walsh is I feel like he's a victim of his own consistency. And you go back to when he was a draftee, and I find it funny. I'll just read out Cal Toomey's strengths, right? Were composure, leadership, football IQ, vision, and endurance, which I'd say, and consistency. So I'd say we'd agree with all 6 of them, wouldn't we? Like his negatives: kicking, kick placement, right? The third one was size, but Sam Walsh has put the size on, right? He's dramatically changed. But I think people forget what Sam Walsh is. I feel like Sam Walsh came in at a time where we were craving Patrick Cripp's help, and we just assumed that he's not who he is. And I look at Sam Walsh, and I think what you're seeing is exactly what I expected when I saw him as a junior. A guy that finds a lot of the ball, that can get the end product moving. And if you get him in the right areas, even though he's never going to be a great kick, he knows where to hit them hot zones. And I think you look at 2021, where you saw him play, 40% on the ball, 40% on the wing, 20% half forward. I think that's Sam Walsh's game. And I think that's how you judge him. You look at it this year. Yes, the year wasn't brilliant, but still the second highest Brownlow vote getter. You look at him in the finals last year where he won the medal, playing more up harsh. Do you know what I mean? More half forward, more on the wing, more out of the guts doing the shit stuff. Like, I think Sam Walsh, if you actually know what he is and actually
Yeah.
classify him as what he is, and you don't compare him to Marcus Bontempelli and all them, I think he's a top 5 player in his role. But I feel like the role he is brilliant at is constantly forgotten about by the casual AFL fan.
So
And I feel like that's why he'll always be harshly critiqued.
So when I went through his highlights for 2024, I found myself realizing he actually had a fantastic year. And if you actually think about the context of what happened in his year with another bout of back issues and back problems and an interrupted preseason, you start to see this trait has come through, and it's a constant in his career, which I know that we were talking earlier about pick 3, and just to come back to the full circle moment, what does it take to become a great player at the Carlton Football Club? Like, if you want to talk about resilience, like this guy's played 20 games this year, back issues, 18 games last year, back surgery, 20 games the year before, syndesmosis to start the year. So, like, we're talking about a guy that's received accolades, All-Australian, Gary Ayres medal. He finds a way. And the year will come where he just gets that full preseason. I don't know what he needs to go through and endure. And maybe this is all just part of Sam's journey, because they've all got it in their own special way. I think Charlie Curnow definitely had his journey in his own special way. But I actually think he was really good this year. I think his tackle numbers often go not unnoticed, but overlooked. Like, we're talking about a guy that averaged 7 tackles a game. He's more of a complete inside-out midfielder than what we thought he could be. And I just think with a full preseason, with no interruption, we're going to see him shatter records.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, right, and I always say this, you look at his best year, 2021, right? He was top 5 for uncontested possessions received, right, in the league, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he was number 7 in the league for effective disposals. He was number 6 for goal assists. Like, you actually see where score involvement, you see where he actually plays his best football. I think when you look at it this year, though, Terry, top 6 for tackles per game. Do you know what I mean? Like, top 12 for inside 50s. Top 20 for score involvements per game. Not bad for someone who's had a shit year, like people have said. I just feel like you look at it this year, I think that this is why 3 is so important. Because I think what you're starting to see with Carlton is, for soccer fans out there, reminds me of Gerrard, Scholes and Lampard for England. You've got 3 incredible midfielders. The problem is only one of them can play their preferred role, and 2 of us have got to pinch hit and maybe get 20 minutes here or there, but they're going to play somewhere else. And I think that's what Carlton have the issue with this year with Sam Walsh, that at times I think we've been forced to play him too much on the ball. And we discussed this when we had our bad period where it was just the same 3. I feel like with Sam Walsh, bit of fitness behind him, bit of development in the other players, Elijah coming on, we can see a return to Walsh. Because this Walsh, if we only get this Walsh for the rest of our lives, still a pretty fucking good Walsh. But I do think there's another level to him. And I think he's a victim of being so fit. I always feel like sometimes the worst thing you can be is versatile. Because it means you are sometimes pulled away. And I think at times maybe Cherry's got a more cushtier job because he can't do what Walsh did, where at least Walsh could go, yeah, I can fill in. I can be Hewitt's number 2. I can be more defensive. I can hang back a little bit. I can defend the wing. In an ideal world, Sam Walsh is treated a bit like Nick Dacos. And you treat him and go, nah, you're the best doing this. And hopefully, number 3 coming in, another year into Elijah, a proper pre-season into him, I think he's done. I think you'll see Sam Walsh return to his form. But 2024, it wasn't a year that we're going to remember, but I do still think it was a pretty solid year, mate.
Yeah, I mean, 28 possessions, 7 tackles a game. He was... I mean, and again, like you said, the traits of his kicking, like I think towards the very, very back end of the year, there were some kicks that missed targets, but it's always been a facet of his game. We also hemorrhaged. The team was hemorrhaged with injuries. So, and he was hemorrhaged with injuries. So here's to hoping that he actually gets a full preseason and does every session, because I do remember at the end of 2023, and he had just won the Gary Ayres medal, right? And I remember like thinking and declaring that he was the best player now in the team. So just a big preseason for everyone, but Sam Walsh with no interruptions. I'd almost say just rest him from right now until January. Just wrap him up. Cotton wool.
Oh no, Terry, you've done it. You've done
What's
it.
that?
Make sure he's looked after. You know what though? You touched on something there. Like people, I always feel sorry for Sam because people go like, in the finals last year, right? The finals where everyone raved about and he won Gary Ayres, and everyone goes, he can't kick. He needs to start his kicking out. Interesting known fact that they were some of his lowest kicking efficiencies in his career. Like the Sydney game, 46%.
Wow.
The Giants game, 50. Melbourne, 57, right? And then you look at it this year, right? He did that at times and people panned him. And it's the two things that annoy me the most. Kicking efficiency becomes a problem when you lose, and speed becomes a massive problem when you lose. No fucker talks about it when you batter aside in the prelim by 60 points or something. Everyone's like, "No, we're the team, way!" And Sam Walsh is that victim at times. And the worst thing you can do in sport is have a consistent level that's good. It's the worst thing. If you ever want pressure, just be consistently good. Because the minute you slightly fall under it, everyone loses their mind, or the minute you're not elite. And I think, honestly, I'm telling you, like, if I always look at it this way, if Sam Walsh requested a trade now, everyone's buying him.
Yeah.
Everyone's buying him. Like, no one's going to be like, oh, he had a shit year last year. Everyone's going to be like, oh my God, get him in. The Walsh dog. So, yeah, I think Walsh is a victim of just his own supremacy. And I think pick 3 will help him out, hopefully.
Also, just like that, Sam Walsh has played 6 seasons in the league. Isn't that crazy? We covered the Sam Walsh draft. That was the first draft that we did. 6 years of Sam Walsh. It's like it just flies by the time. He quickly evolved from the kid, like super quick. Like it took him 3 seasons to have that kid tag removed.
And this is the one thing that annoys me when people say, "Oh, Carlton don't develop players." You got to remember that we were coming in; these players were coming in, and we were dog shit. Like Sam Walsh, pick 1. Like you look at the pick 1s post that era, right? So you had Sam Walsh that year, right? You had Matt Rowell that played 50% inside midfield time. Like Sam Walsh was like 70. Then you have Jamara Ugle-Hagan. They spent all of his time in VFL for a year. So bad that people were calling for him to be sacked. Jason Horne-Francis, he had to go in there and by right struggle. Cadman, do you know what I mean? Like he was rested and played. Harley Reid. You look at Harley Reid. You had Kane Corns halfway through the year saying they need to play him on the ball more because they were trying to protect him at half-back flank and playing half-forward. Like, our draftees have probably been the biggest cursed players in the history of humanity because they've had to come in, and because we've been so bad at drafting and recruiting before that, these poor fuckers had to play their position. And in an ideal world, Sid Draper, Foss, whoever it is, Layla, they come in round 1 next year. There's an Elijah Hollands hole they fill. And it's like, you're going to play 80% half forward, 20% you're going to pinch it in. Elijah, you're going to get them 60% minutes now. You're a big boy. You've got the responsibility. And we act like a normal footy club. Like look at Nick Dacos. I remember covering his draft. Best junior I've ever seen. Kid blows me away at juniors. Guy was playing halfback for a year and a half. You know what I mean? Halfback for a year and a half. Didn't go anywhere near the midfield. Like, we never did. In an ideal world, Sam Walsh probably doesn't have his back problem because he didn't have to haul ass with Cripper in 2019.
True.
Like,
true.
And I feel like he's, you know what as well? Another thing, you got me going now. Carlton fans do my fucking head in at times Because we're the only club in the world that someone has an injury that happens all the time in the AFL and then worry that it's going to be like debilitating for the rest of his life. Like Sam Walsh has come out numerous times saying that he's okay. Do you know what I mean? That it's something that he's going to manage and work through. Like, he hasn't changed. If anything, I'd say the Sam Walsh we have in 2024 is a better footballer here than he was 2021. And that was his best year. I just feel like at the moment, he's a victim of, we were cozying him in 2021. Feel like now he's become a man and we have to fill the gap. He has to do the dirty stuff. And in an ideal world, it'd be nice if we could play him like Nick Dacos and let him have a bit of freedom and do what he wants. And hopefully some young kid comes in, Hollands takes that role, Chera stops fucking getting injured, and we see Sam Walsh, like we did in that finals where the midfielder was sorted and Walsh was the cherry on the top, the little hundreds and thousands.
Doing these ones.
Yeah, look at Sam. Like, I watched actually Sam Walsh's final. I watched the Sydney game the other day. Total different Sam Walsh to the one we saw this year. Like, half the time that guy, like, if anything, I've seen players say he's soft because he was going nowhere near contact. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually opposition fans would be like, oh, he's just hiding away from the contest. Oh, he's not doing anything hard. And I'm like, this is what we need from him. This is what we need from him. Get him away from trouble. Out in open space, having a time of his life. Hopefully, we have the personnel this year because I think we do.
Yeah.
Problem is we don't utilise it.
And that leaves the final topic.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I'll ask you, Pommy, and I'll ask you at home. And I will do a video on this eventually. I just want to do some market research. Every year there's that story around positional changes. Every club has one or two.
Go on. Go on. Get it out of your system.
I'm crying. Oh my god. Oh, you've just thrown me there. Oh my god. Okay, sorry. Do you forecast any positional changes? Like, what would be your predictions? Whether it's a defender to the forward line, I know Kemp and Silvani have been spoken about. Whether it's a midfielder to the forward into the mid a little bit more. What do you forecast as something that would need to change in order to help us?
I suppose let's get the elephant in the room. We'll get it out of the way. I mean, Jesus could be a fullback because his dad was good. Could maybe be an on-baller as well because his grandpa weren't so bad on the ball.
Oh, mate. I've got tears in my eyes.
Don't know how genes work in your country. They work a bit differently where I come from. But seriously, I mean, I could see that. I could see we're going to be looking at that because I think you're going to see. I think they'll carry on with Harry and with Brodie Kemp playing forward. I do think they'll continue with that. Harry Lemmy's going to be a fascinating one because they moved him front and back a few times last year. So it's obvious that they're looking for a backup backman. Do you know what I mean? A backup backman at some point. So you look at it, young Wheater the guys that have left screams to me that's an internal one because you ain't drafting. There's no defender. In fact, there's not one defender in the draft this year that you'd trust in a key position from day one.
True.
Do you know what I mean? So for me, it screams one of them is probably going to be retrained. If that's Jack Silvani, it worries me a little bit because he played 2 VFL games down back and he got peppered once by a guy who used to deliver the post. So a lot of work to do from him. But I'll give Jack one thing. He's hungry. Like, he used to tag. And he is a guy that does work his arse off. Harry Lemmy, I'm not convinced that's the right move. Brodie Kemp, I am intrigued playing a bit forward. I am intrigued by that because that's something that he did very well in his draft year. He had that Eagles game. He looked a bit pants the week after, though, didn't he? But there's probably a bit of premise there. You've still got to kick the goals. And he did do that. Outside of that, I've heard people say, like, Saad playing up the ground. That wouldn't work for me. I'd like to see Lockie Cowan really embrace that intercept role. Really embrace maybe that Nick Newman role. Like, I've said it before, if we can have this conversation next year and we're talking about Nick Newman time to retire, Saad, do we need him? That's the best thing for this football club. Like, I want to see Mitch McGovern, Saad, Newman and Doherty. I want to see 4 kids have them in their sights. Say, we've got this. Retire, boys. So that's what I'm looking for. You know what? I'm going to go left field. I want to see Chin Cotter become a full-time tagger. Defensive mid, like Hewitt. I want to see that because I think Cooper Lord will replace Hewitt in the next 2 years, but I think you're going to see Cooper Lord be a lot more aggressive than Hewitt. So you'll need that little bit of defence, that stay at home, which I think Chin Cotter's got the engine and the pace, and he's got the muscle.
That's
I want to see that
point. That's a really interesting point. Chin Cotter, the forgotten man in the Kennedy departure, because clearly something needs to evolve with the group. Like, clearly, we can't expect to be doing what we did in 2024 in 2025 and expect to just get better. Like, clearly there's going to be a shuffling of sorts. I know we talked about Jack Silvani before, but I mean, we all spoke this year around how it would be ideal to have Jack as the third tall / backup ruck.
I think everyone sells Jack Silvani short, to be honest, because I said it last year. I'd rather have Jack Silvani in my side than Jack Martin, and there's a reason. He's available, and you see what happens when our midfield plays together every week. Back end of the year finals last year, you see what happens. Backline when it's together, the best defenders in the league the year before last, when there was no changes for like till round 14 with them. For me, that's how a team formulates. Jack Silvani, he can ping a mark. And you know what? I trust him kicking at goal. And I think we need that third option because I think we become too reliant on Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. So, in my opinion, he's the last person I'd retrain down the back. Harry Lemmy's at the top of that queue because I look at him play for the VFL and I see it in glimpses. I don't see it in some. But he does ping a mark. He does make himself available. Is that an option? And it is an option he did at juniors. Jack Silvani, caveat, and I'm not Jack Silvani's biggest fan by any stretch of the imagination. He's actually in my round 1 team as the third tall because I want Ashton to have 3 or 4 games in VFL to destroy that myth and say, nah, this is mine. This is mine. So it's an intriguing one.
What you mentioned earlier about Elijah playing a bit more in the middle too is something I'd be curious to see.
Already told you he's all Australian next year. We don't make promises here. We just make guarantees.
That's true.
All Australian, mate. Tell you, if he gets more than 30% on the ball, all Australian from Lidge.
Mate, the last time you gave me a guarantee like that, you said that Charlie Curnow would come back and win the Coleman after 2 years out. So we'll see how that plays
I'm telling you, Lidge, honestly, my boy, and I'll still stand by it, in my opinion, the best player in his draft class. Like, bold called as well, because there's Jamaga Ugle-Hagan there. Players like I still think Elijah will be the best player in that draft class.
Mm-hmm. True. There actually are a few more bits and pieces to get through.
Oh, Jimmy, what a call as well. Yeah, the only thing I got wrong about that is they lost 1 game on that run.
Yes.
But I was so close. Brisbane fans owe me, and they still give me hate.
So there were 5 proposed changes that were given to the AFL clubs for next year. Not proposed changes. They were just like sort of vibe checking. And I wanted to get your thoughts on these. So the first one was reducing the maximum time to play on from a free kick or mark from the usual 6 or 7 seconds. Yes or no?
Yeah, because they take fucking way too long. Like that should be instantaneous, and it makes sense to be instantaneous because the teams are out of position.
True. I think not
My
much
caveat
more.
to that, though, is it happened a few times in Carlton's game versus Brisbane, and we were complaining in the live where the umpire calls you back
Yeah.
and says you've been too quickly. Like, I hope it's at liberty of once the player's ready to play, we play at his speed. You know, like in tennis, it's at the speed of the server.
Mhm.
I hope they amend that rule when the umpires aren't going, oh, no, you've gone too quickly. Like, if they're reducing it, we can go as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Well, from looking at this, they're looking to speed things up a bit more. So the next one was reduction in time before calling play on from a kick in. So basically playing on quicker from a kick in. Yes or no?
Yeah, because some of them take ages.
Some of them take the piss.
I think that helps us, actually, because the longer Saab thinks about it, the more likely that is to go centre wing.
True. Stop giving us time to think.
Yeah, I'd make that instant. I just kick it, boys. You'd be right.
Okay. This one. Getting rid of the 666 warning. So that's assuming that you just are giving away a free kick straight away.
Finally, how many fucking weeks, how many years do they need? Like, literally, we had the rule. We all understand it. Just force it. It's stupid. Like, remember to set up correctly. Start punishing it. That's the quickest way to learn. I said it when it was first invented.
It's true.
I thought it should have been a 4-week birth, and then by the by, now you've all had it now. The best way for you to learn is it starts costing you goals.
I really do believe that 6 weeks of it, where you get a free kick given away if you don't set up properly, will do the job for the league.
Do you remember Carlton got done for it the first year? It was like round 13.
Yeah.
And then we never got done after it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember the game as well because the umpire, I remember the commentator complaining that we'd had an extra, like, warning because one of the players was out of position and he was running as the umpire blew the whistle. So he gave us the benefit of the doubt, but then we did it again and he gave us the 50-metre penalty and we never did it again. Like I said, just make everyone have it straight away. They won't do it again when it's 6 points.
Yep. And then the final one was removal of the double goal free kicks. So basically, you know how sometimes a little something happens after a goal's kicked. So instead of the second shot on goal being from inside the 50-meter arc, the double free kick the second free kick would take place from the center square.
Don't like that because usually from my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, chat, I'm sure you will, but I can't remember a double free kick that's ever not been because someone's been a dickhead. Like, it's always like someone's come in with an arm and punched the guy as he's kicked a goal, or it's always for like a stupid thing. It's never been like, you know, for like just something inconsequential, like the guy's farted or something. It's always been he's done something stupid, dickhead level, where I think 12-point play is the best way to punish stupidity. But,
yeah, well, I guess we were the beneficiaries of the 12-point play against Freo.
Yeah.
Because Jordan
Clark...
Yeah,
and from memory, that was like a late off-the-ball hit, wasn't it? It was like... Wasn't it? Oh, no, it was the argument, didn't they?
Umpire dissent.
He swore at the umpire.
Call him a prick.
Yeah, fair enough. Like...
Yeah.
I remember that live because I remember Freo fans saying Pom would cry if this happened to him. And I'm like, I probably would, but I'd accept you can't call the umpire names unless you're me, so...
Yeah. I'd be more mad at our players for giving away the free kick than the free kick.
That was my tangent. I was like, you've got to keep your discipline in a tight game. So, I think that's stupid. That's nonsense.
Yeah. So
did they do something with the ruck as well, Terry?
Sorry?
I'm pretty sure they got rid of nominations, didn't they, as well, rucks?
Not sure. I'm not sure on that one. on the list that I can see here, I only have those 5. I don't have a ruck nomination.
Give me a sec.
Yeah.
I'm sure they changed it. I'm sure that was the next one.
Well, there's your low hanging fruit for how to speed up the game and remove time wasting. Stop nominating rucks. Bring back the third
From
man.
now on, it was ready to play. Because I know they got rid of the sub rule was knocked down.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they said that now it was ready to play with the ruck nominations. But
Okay.
I could be wrong. I know they were voting on them. I'm pretty sure that one went through. But because that is the stupidest rule with AFL. Because I always say this. Every umpire, we all know, we can all name the ruckman of every fucking club. And we don't play the game. You're telling me the umpires are shocked when they see a giant go for it. Like, I always love it when Geelong do it because Geelong's team are all midgets apart from Blitzarbs and fucking Stanley. And he's like, Geelong nominate. It's like, who the fuck do you think it's going to be, bro? Like, it's the big guy, mate.
Nominate when the big guy's not there.
Yeah. To me, it should just be if one person goes in, because you watch as well. They're always the closest to the ball. It's not like any club's thought of being sneaky and like huddled together and go, we're going up, and then we just all run in. One of us runs in. Like, you know who it is, didn't it?
I'll tell you one that I think is going to be cracked down on next year. I think there will be a crackdown on runners. I watched, and I watch it a lot, not just our team, but like opposition teams. And when Carlton weren't playing, I guess I watch the game more broadly when I'm at the stadium, but they fill holes. I'm convinced it's strategic. They fill holes in the ground when the opposition have the ball. I'm convinced. And I think there will be a crackdown.
I like that. I'm with chat as well. You know what I'd like to see? I can't believe they haven't got rid of the sub rule.
Okay, why? As in, do you think just have 5 on the bench or 4 on the bench?
Yeah. And I've said this for years. Loads of other sports, cricket's brought it in. Just have a concussion sub, like that doesn't contribute to anything. Like if you wanna have a sub, have it purely for concussions, not injuries. But I genuinely think because the AFL have done this where it's part of your stats as well. I don't like it. Like just have it as 5 people. Do you know what I mean? 5 people. Because you've still got the cap. Do you know what I mean? You've still got the cap of how many interchanges you can have. So it doesn't really give you an advantage. But it's going to keep players fresher for longer. I just think get rid of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't the initial sub with the green vest, wasn't it a concussion sub? And then there was the debate around, why can't it just be a tactical sub? Sorry, it was a medical sub. And then there was the uproar about it should just be a tactical sub.
Geelong were doing stuff. Don't you remember? I think it was Blitzarbs. He went off with a migraine.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I remember saying, how fucking easy is it to just say, I've got gastro? Do you know what I mean? Like something that you can't prove at the source is quite like, do you know what I mean? We've all taken sick days. I mean, and then Geelong did it, didn't they? One of their players said that he had a migraine and he had the aura, and the doctor said, he's got a migraine. And then it turned out he's never had a headache in his life. And everyone was shocked someone would bend the rules.
How are we sure? Let's just, I'll play out the scenario. So we remove the sub. We have 5 on the bench. You start naming your best 23. Awesome. What happens when undoubtedly, because of the probability of something like this happening, 3 players in one team get hurt in a game, and then it's like, but we have emergencies. Why can't we just have an injury sub? Who's to say that we don't keep going down the cycle of another sub?
Yeah, but it's life, Terry, isn't it? Like bad things happen. This is why we have warnings on bleach. Don't drink it. Like you can't idiot-proof too many things. Sometimes people are just idiots. Like for me, I just think if you I like a 5-man bench. I think it gives teams options. I think it allows you to do it. You know, the other big rule I'd bring in as well, I'd ban club doctors from the ground and they would be AFL employed with the proviso of we don't want to be sued. Right?
Yeah.
So I've been following the Petrarca one really closely, and there's a lot of comments there that the club put a lot of pressure on the doctor to okay track because they were desperate for him to return to the ground. In NFL, they are independent. They are owned by the NFL, paid by the NFL, and the NFL basically said to him, if it's 5 seconds in doubt, if you're slightly in doubt, sub him out.
Yeah.
That would be grouse. I would love an independent one who just says, look, mate, he's cooked.
Yeah.
Like, because it's too grey in it. Like, we've all got doctors here. I can ring my doctor now and get a sick note for just about anything you want because I've got a relationship with her. So
And then
I'd imagine AFL doctors are the same.
Look, but even if it was an AFL doctor, right, it just always gets sensitive in finals because it's like, oh, but he might miss a grand final for like a low grade concussion potentially.
Yeah, but if he's independent, you can't argue, can you, with it?
Yeah.
Like for me, like I always say this about anything in soccer as well. When it's out of your hands, like VAR or something, it's not the team doing that. Like you can't hate Tottenham for having a VAR goal allowed or something like that because it's the system. So if you've got someone else to blame and the mandate is we're here to protect the players and you're serious about protecting the players, have it as an impartial player, an impartial board, an impartial body. And if you say to a doctor, we just care about the player wellness, like make sure they're 100% A-OK, you overrule everyone. No one can complain about it. You can complain about it, yeah, but we're all playing off the same field. And if the AFL are serious and clubs are serious, the players' welfare should trump everything if we're led to believe the rubbish they tell us.
Well, it does trump everything until it's a superstar.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I personally wouldn't be upset if Patrick Cripps went off with 10 minutes to go and an independent doctor has said, look, he was displaying signs of concussion. We're worried about him. I'd be like, look, I'd be disappointed, but I'd also understand I'd rather Cripps be available to play next week or the week after than have to retire because we've tried to do a dodgy and get 4 points. But if you take it out of the hands, there's none of that incentive, is there?
Yeah. Interesting point.
I did like Matt Champion's taking people off when they kick a fucking goal. What is that?
It has to be a theory that has infiltrated teams. I don't understand it. It must have some sort of scientific relevance that they're going to be more emotionally charged and at risk of doing an injury after kicking a goal or something, because it doesn't make sense to me. I need it to be explained.
Yeah, but isn't it like anything else though? Like I know in soccer, like I was a striker. If you scored one, you feel like you've got a 12-inch penis. So you feel like you're going to score 2, 3, 4.
Mate.
Every time a ball comes in, you feel like it's going to go in. Like we don't have that interchange in soccer, but I would fucking hate it if you took me off and said, sit down for 10 minutes and think about what you'd done. I'd want to be back out there.
We don't do it with Charlie, and Charlie does get hot and he kicks clusters of goals. It's a good point, Petra.
You know what? Cadtrick makes a great comment there. If they do worry about, this whole lower the interchange, I like the lower of the interchange because I think it has made the game more competitive. I'd like to see, you've seen it with, I remember soccer went from 3 subs, they've extended it, and they've also extended the bench. I think one of the things that is sexy about that is it suddenly puts a bit more onus on the tactical side of the game. That, can you imagine if you had 7 bench? What 7 do you do? What makeup do you do? You're talking about injuries. Imagine Brisbane game. Imagine being able to roll the dice and go TDK, Pitternet. Do you know what I mean? You roll the dice with all the injured players and say, right, 10 minutes here and there, we'll see how it goes. And I don't like the fatigue aspect of AFL because I think that's going to make more injuries.
Yeah, I agree.
And a good mate of mine works in sports science. He was explaining to me why women do more ACLs from a biomechanical point of view. And he was saying with rugby, they've increased the interchange in women's rugby and stuff like that. So they've got less time on the ground, more recovery time for short spurt things. something that maybe they should look at with the AFLW, like make that 100 interchanges, bigger bench, things like that, to try and help them out.
So
But
if you have,
it's weird how many hammies we had last year, isn't it? Have you noticed ACLs and hammies in AFL over the last 2 years? Astronomical.
yeah, it is weird, especially the hamstrings.
And is that linked to the fact that the AFL themselves admitted limiting the interchange bench brought fatigue on quicker, thus making games more of a spectacle? Like, that sounds a little bit ridiculous, doesn't it? That's like someone saying, do you know your YouTube videos will get more ad revenue if you stand on top of the tallest building with no safety net? Like, okay, maybe, but I'm not going to fucking do it. Like, it just, I think Cadtrick's onto something there. Maybe just having a 7-man bench, same interchange, and then add a bit more onus on tactical nous.
Yeah. Yeah, then I guess the question comes, what happens? Do all those players play in the VFL? Do they play, it's a scheduling thing? Do you need bigger list sizes? Yeah.
Yeah,
especially
you know what would be nice as well, and it won't happen, but here's Pom's bet. By round 6, one of these rules is heavily amended. That's what annoys me as well. The AFL do these, and they don't give it like a teething phase of 12 months, 24 months. Do you know what I mean? They just go, oh, let's give it fucking 2 days. Oh, nah, that's rubbish. Let's change it. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we just made these rules now and we don't have any rule amendments till this time next year?
It goes through like one cycle of media scrutiny. It's like, nah, too early for scrutiny. We'll change it.
Yeah, bizarre, isn't it? Like, one of these rules will be absolutely removed by about round 3.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because Patrick Dangerfield's probably cried about it. I mean, it cost me a goal round 3 because you made me play on, because all I was going to do was throw it on my boot and peg it into 50.
Here's one for you. Who's the next AFL Players Association president?
Oh,
like,
God.
Which player? Like, when's the last time a star brand name was also the president of the AFL, PA?
Who do you reckon it is? You know what? Who could it be?
I think Pito's on that board. Just saying.
It's danger at the moment. Pito's there. Sam Frosty's on there as well, isn't he?
Okay.
Sam Frosty's on. So you'd imagine Darcy Moore probably takes it over, doesn't he, from Danger?
Okay, yeah. Okay. It's clearly Darcy Moore. Yep.
But you know who I could see on there? I reckon Elijah Hollands in 5 years on there.
Why?
Just think he would be a great representative. Looking at them guys, they've all had different avenues to that thing. So it's obvious that they're trying to give you that kind of, you've had a bit of difficulties or you've gone a different way. I could see Elijah coming in as a draftee, injured. He understands what it's like to go to a club that you don't want to be drafted by interstate. Yeah. I think he'd be a really good representative. And hearing him speak quite candidly about his struggles with weight and stuff, which have really fascinated me, I just think he could be a great advocate for players. I think he obviously gets not being the normal player.
Damien, I agree. I don't know if, I think with time, not yet. I think in time, Guinea will mature and be a great advocate for the next generation.
He's a fascinating case, isn't he? Because, AFL is one of the weirdest media things. And I think Saz was saying it, AFL media destroy AFLW, which I agree with her. I think they are shocking. I also find it funny that they crave sportsmen to be... I remember it was only 2 years ago. I think it was Kane Corns discussing, and he was enjoying the NBA players. They take the piss. Like Kyle for ages when he was at Lakers, Kuzma used to wear them giant arm things because people called him the wacky wave inflatable. So he got them jumpers made that were like 9 foot long.
Yeah.
And Kane Corns was saying he thought that was cool how the players turned up with their own styles, skateboarding, fashion thing. But then, like, 2 years later, he's complaining that Ginny's got a personality, and you're like, hang about, mate. Like, 2 years ago. It's weird, isn't it? Because Ginny, we've been craving for a guy to give it to the crowd, be a bit of a clown, but then we pan him for it the minute we get what we want. But then we complain that some of the players are too vanilla. Like, what do you want? Like, don't be extreme, but wouldn't it be nice if all the players had a bit of emotion?
I'll tell you what I think people want. It's really simple. They just want something to complain about.
Yeah.
And be outraged by.
No, I'm with you. I just find it fascinating because you know what? You know what I think the biggest compliment I can play Ginny is I wish him nothing but fucking misery when I play him.
Yeah. And that's a respect.
And if I go back to soccer, my home game, I only feel like that by very good players. Like, I name me a player in a team, and if I have no feelings for him, they're probably bag average. But the ones that irritate me are genuinely good at what they do. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I like it. Like, I want to see a bit more of it, mate, to be honest. Like, I heard Kane Corns complaining that this group of draftees are going to have the most TikTok-style celebrations. And I was like, fucking good. It'd be nice if I saw more than fucking this every 5 seconds. I'd like a little bit of personality.
We might... well, the funny thing is media rarely changes. Like, it takes 2 or 3 generations, maybe even more, for media... like the media heads to change. Actually, even more, like literally 3 or 4. Whereas the generation of football every 5, 6, 7 years, it's a different style, it's a different society, it's a different product altogether. Like already what Sam Walsh was as a number 1 pick or as a first year player compared to what and what he was doing and compared to what someone like a Sid Draper will be, like it's almost a different world already.
Yeah, and I think watching the draftees, you're starting to see like that little cultural shift as well from them. Like you're starting to see, you're getting a bit of wild boy type mentality, like a bit of personality, bit of quirks, and that's good. Like personality is like, it feels like it's frowned upon still, but being a bit quirky is good. Do you know what I mean? Being a bit different. I mean, I've got to say, I enjoyed Hawthorn and their celebrations. Like I genuinely, as a neutral, watched that, and I like seeing them all have their weird little handshakes and stupid fucking dances. Like, I don't get it, but it looks like they're having fun out there. And I said it with Paul last night on SEN. You can see a good soccer team by how they play. If they look like they're enjoying it, genuinely they're good. And we were talking about Arsenal saying they look like they hate it at the minute and their results have been poor. When you're playing well and you've got a smile on your face, it makes it a little bit easier. And I kind of like that from Hawks, you know, the little dancing. And I'd like to see more of it from Carlton, to be honest. I know some of them have. I reckon Ashton Moore's got some Fortnite dances in the locker.
I reckon too. Yeah.
That's probably the first show we've done where we haven't said we're winning a flag. Disgrace.
I don't know, to be honest, man. I think it was somebody wrote a comment. I think it was Equality, all the way from the US. He wrote a comment on a video recently, and it kind of stuck with me. And he said, "There's a bit of a feeling of let's see how we go next year and prepare for 2026." And I haven't been able to get it out of my head.
Do you know what you talked earlier about Carlton running the AFLW and the men's thing, and this is a question for you in chat. Do you think Carlton dream to win the flag, or do you think they plan to win the flag? That's the goal. Do you think that's the goal to win a flag, or do you think it's the dream to win a flag?
What's the difference?
You know what? My doctor hit me with something when I got my results last week, and it actually fucking touched me. And she said to me that the difference between a dream and a goal is a plan. She was like, a goal is planned, and she was like, a dream is just something you say and you hope one day it mysteriously happens.
I do think it's okay. In that case, I genuinely do believe that it is a goal for them.
And do you think that plan's good enough for the goal? Or is the plan just wishy-washy and therefore the goal becomes a dream?
I get the feeling it's very early. I need to see how preseason goes and who's healthy and the context of everything. I just get the feeling, the instinct. I don't know why that we almost had to like rip the Band-Aid off with some of these players that we got rid of this year and regenerate. And I don't know if that means taking a step backwards to go forwards, but it's an instinct. Maybe because I haven't seen the draft, like the rest of the list, still got to fill up spots. I haven't seen anything yet. And maybe it's misguided thought right now because the list isn't complete for 2025, but yeah. But then on the other hand, it's like, hang on a minute. I think we're throwing responsibility onto those now on the inside. Like, this is your club. We are paying the top end, the top bracket. We've invested in the long-term contracts to the specific players. Like, the plan is there because you've got, Weeders and Harry and Charlie and these guys that are all on long-term deals and, hopefully deconing soon. So I do also have that optimism that, sometimes you've got to give people some responsibility to see that they're actually, like, they can actually do more than what you thought they could, and you thought they could do something. So, yeah.
No, I think, mate, you know what? I read a comment the other day and someone said to me, and someone had wrote that the delistings from Carlton, people are saying that they're ruthless, but they're not. They're obvious changes, right?
Okay.
And I was like, you know what, that's a good point, because to me, the guys that have left, and I was quite adamant about this, always, I could take or leave him. Do you know what I mean? I could take or leave him. Kennedy, he ain't in my best 22, right? So do you know what I mean? Like, for me personally, I'm like, yeah, a blind man could have made the decision. But you know what excites me? We never fucking make them decisions. Like,
yes, no, spot on.
And
they are the obvious.
That's what turns me on, because usually we're like, oh, but maybe always could get quicker. Give him a year. Maybe Marchbank could miraculously find hamstrings. It was great that we just said, you know what? No, fuck it. Bye.
Well, that's
and
what
that
made it
kind of
so
excites
impactful.
me.
That's what made these changes impactful, because we've been talking about these players that seem obvious now for years, but we still hadn't made that obvious change. So I don't know where it goes. It's a double-edged sword. It could be we'll miss them. It could be, oh, we actually needed to make these changes to allow for the next layer of growth to come. And look, let's be honest. Apart from Kennedy and Owies, which of the guys that left played significant minutes in the best version of this team, whether that was due to injury or form? Like,
well, a lot of people say Jack Carroll because he played like 20 odd games last year, but like I always counter that and was like, yeah, but he was bobbins when he did. You know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Like honestly, maybe I'm harsh, but like Domaku, love the kid, sponsored him, absolute diamond, love him. I'm a football club, though. I don't want people that I like. I want people that win. And unfortunately, Dom isn't the level at AFL, and that's okay. Jack Carroll, like, to delist him, we were obviously giving him away for now. No fucker wanted him. Matt Carroll, I think he's a little bit stiff. You signed him with an ACL, injured all year, but great that we're not keeping him just in case. I love that. I love the fact we've said you're going to be fighting with another reject, another kid not drafted for your job. I love that. Connors, fuck me. Jesus. Like
28 minutes on a live stream, bro. 28 minutes on a fucking live stream.
Bro, honestly, if you ask me, what do you believe in more? David Cunningham playing AFL football or Flat Earth? Call me Flat Earth Pom. Sam Durden, behave. Matt Kennedy, yes, we love Bam Bam. Great player. Great player. But Jesus Christ, he's the second cab off the rank of an already hummed midfield. And everyone says can't kick slow. Well, I love Matt Kennedy, but he's the poster boy of can't kick slow. Caleb Marchbank, Jesus. God. Jack Martin, Jesus. Like, if he can have 3 years contract, everyone should have. Alex Murkoff, Mickey Mouse, he's a volleyballer. And Matt Owies, I was in this seat last year and said if he was your best small forward, you're borderline a top 8 side. And where did we finish this year?
Borderline top 8.
Yeah, okay, cool. Top 4 side now, thanks. Like, I don't get it. Like, but I'm telling you right now, Carlton I know and love. Kennedy gets a year. Cunningham gets a year. Marchman gets a year. Martin's promised a rookie spot. Like, it's great. We've said, bye. Let's give the job to Motlop. Motlop thinks he's king shit. Prove it round 1. There's no always to protect you now. It's you. I like it.
No, he's in his 4th season now, Motlop, upcoming. Like, this is it now. There's a bit of this is it, guys, about next year as well. So my fears of we'll see how we go are there, but also my optimism of sometimes you need to put people in the spotlight and say, hey, there's 16 or 17 of you out of contract. Every single one of those 17 players has to earn another contract.
Mate, how good is it? And you look at some of them players, we're going to learn a lot about them, I think, because I don't think a lot of that list at next year, in my opinion, is a lock for the best 22. I think they've got work to do.
Yeah.
And then I also look, they're fighting kids who are hungry. And you've only got to look at some of the players that are delisted this year. A draft like this, we've seen more delistings, more contract removals. We've seen Adelaide today do the dodgy of delisting players to re-sign them up so they can have more picks.
Yeah, can you? I haven't seen anything like that for a while. For a specific draft, knowing it's going to run deep as well. What makes it so deep? Why is it so good?
Yeah, well, it's the perfect rebuild draft. And what I'd say about this is, I wouldn't say, I hate the phrase super draft, and super draft has been convoluted because for me, a super draft is 3 or 4 talents are world class. I think this is a deep draft, a bumper draft. I think this is full of role players from about 10 to 50. And I think the most core ingredient in your list is the 25th best player. If you can have 5 or 6 of them in your list, you're doing pretty well. So I think you can pick up a player. In my opinion, there's probably about 5 players on average in every block of 10, going 0 to 10, 11 to 20, that potentially could play 200 games. So if you're rebuilding or if you're Carlton, I think this is a great opportunity to get some real good cream, but also back it up. So I think from Carlton's point of view, I think there's going to be a lot of players that won't get drafted that will be in the rookie draft that are probably pick 30s last year, speculative picks. So Adelaide had a job to do. They had horrible list management, 37 spots on their senior list. They've got pick 4 and they've got Tyler Walsh, who is attracting interest. So they've done the dodgy thing where the rookie list now has become... The rookie list now should be renamed to I can't manage my list. And they've just effectively sacked 2 players this morning, Chris Burgess and Schoenberg, renegotiated their deals to rookie deals, and they'll pick him up in there. So it's a common trick. I cover it every year in the draft, and people just watch the video and go, oh, that's great, Pom. Cheers for that useless information. This year, every club's doing it, so it's really nice the AFL have done it. But it probably brings a conversation into the rookie draft is now a bit of a mockery because the premise of it is to get players a second chance. Like Matt Carroll, that's the kind of player it is. Now it's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? It's like Jack Gunston. You got like 50-year-olds on that fucking list now.
Question of the delisted in the entire league, which are there a couple of names that you have your eye on for a potential spot or a train-on spot for us to add to our list? If so, who?
I don't think there's... Go on.
I'm still riding the Tom Cleary train. He can fill Sam Durden's spot.
Tom Cleary, you know what? I mean, I'd like it. I mean, if you look at our list predicament at the minute, you've got 6 on the senior list.
Yeah.
And 1 to find on the rookie list at the moment. So you'd imagine Carlton are just going to get to 36. So that'll be 338, Ben Camporelli, and probably a delisted free agent or a PSD type player. And then the rest will be rookies, which will be 3 rookie spots. I'd like Carlton to be a bit sexy with this and bring 8 players in and say 4 of you will get the gig. Like, make them work for it. Like, give Heath Ramshaw that gig. Say you're going up against whoever it is. It's going to be interesting because there is no names there. Like if you go through it, like Gary Rowan, like Parfit doesn't really turn me on. DGB doesn't really turn me on, but if he's never playing like Sam Durden, I'd rather take a punt on a 21-year-old. There's no one really, is there? Like, let's be honest. I don't mind your Tom Clory shout because he's been there, he's done it, relatively fit most of his time.
30.
I don't mind it.
He's only 30.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, the problem we've got with Sam Durden is I wouldn't have an issue with Sam Durden, but the problem is even though we never had to use him, bloke's always injured, which I always say this, I would rather that be a 19-year-old. If we're never using him anyway, give him 2 years to maybe be a gem. And I know people are on a hate campaign with DGB, but COVID draft year, top 10 pick. I have no issues of him being the 5th best defender when potentially he could be. He could make it. He's got some skills. I agree with Damo as well. Like I hope Matt Carroll gets it, but I do like the fact Matt Carroll's been forced to earn the position back. Show us how hungry you are. You're probably going to be up against Heath Ramshaw and some kids. Show you're the man. Like I like it. I like the fact we're not giving these spots out.
Yeah. Well, we've got a few more weeks until the draft, and then the boys are going to be back at training like first week of December for a few weeks. Matter of fact, some of them are already training now. So there's still a little bit more to play out before 2024 ends. Can we just not have a fucking Christmas injury just one time? Just one time.
Let's put it out to the universe, doesn't he? There it is. Smite me, oh smiters. Oh, fucking hell.
Just one time. Just one time. No, just one time. My housemate, he left today. He's flying to LA, and we're talking about the preseason this morning. He's like, I just can't be fucked with another preseason injury. And I'm like, yeah, wow. Like, when have we not had a serious one?
This year.
Walsh.
This year.
You mean
year.
The one
no, this year. This year. This will be our first. We'll go in 44 hungry little babies ready to go. Ready to go.
Round one, Thursday, because we fucked off opening round and there's 44 blokes to choose from.
Yeah, and probably some YouTuber who's been like constantly on the I absolutely hate Andrew Russell train will get shirts made up saying told you it was Russell, and we'll all wear them. So there we are.
Oh dear. Well, that's been 2 hours and 8 minutes.
So told you, this is our future, Terry. Chatting shit. We have done 2 hours and 10 minutes.
True.
We've no sport. Like, imagine if you opened it up to the other world of what we could talk about.
True. Well, we started this show with me contemplating like retirement, and now I know why we're still here.
Yeah, we could do geopolitics next week. We could do all sorts, mate.
Yeah, we could. All right. Ladies and gents, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. Videos to come this week, both here and on the Pommy and Oz YouTube channels. We will see you very soon. Good night. Thanks, Pommy.
Cheers, guys. See you later.